Hey, welcome back, Sabscribers. It's your girl Sab again, here with another episode of Suffering of Silence. And it's not just any episode of Suffering of Silence. Today is my special birthday episode. So I did skip this last Friday's episode because I wanted to release this episode on my birthday. And what can I say? What can I say? I am now 29, and when y'all listen to this, I will be somewhere in Europe. Wow. It has been a crazy year. 28. Goddamn. 28 was a great year for me. I'm so happy for the last year of my life. I'm so happy for the last 9 years of my life, even with all the shit that I've been through. You know, I used to for so long beat myself up for wasting a majority of my 20s catering to other people and their needs and trying to make other people happy and not really considering myself or even thinking about the things that I love and the things that I enjoy doing. You know, sometimes as I sit here and I just reflect on the last 9 years of my life, I think about, I used to think a lot about the opportunities I missed out on in my life. All the things that I was passionate about, all the things that I loved, all the dreams that I wanted to chase and achieve. And I used to beat myself up so much for what I didn't do, instead of embracing what I did go through and how it ended me exactly where I need to be, where I've always been meant to be. And I don't care what no one says. It's never too late to become who you have always wanted to be. It's never too late to do what you love, what you care about. It's never too late to change. And I think I used to tell myself so often that I can't, obviously I can't take back the years that I wasted in those relationships that were no good for me. But all I can do is take it and turn it into gold. Turn all of that into what makes me a better person. And some of the biggest and impactful things that happened to me in my 20s, not only did I hate myself for the choices I didn't make, but even the choices I did make. Every single time I decided to stay in that abusive relationship, or every time that I decided to give up myself for that relationship. I used to hate myself so much for making those choices back then. But having realized that, to be honest, when I think about every single time I kept going back, or every single time I kept choosing him, and every single time I kept choosing that relationship, I turn that on myself and I tell myself, I'm like, if you could choose someone that terrible and that awful every single time, after every single time he puts his hands on you, he hurts you, why wouldn't you be able to choose yourself? Why wouldn't you be able to love yourself that same way? Because I would never do myself the way that he did me. I would never hurt myself the way that he's hurt me. So, therefore, I know I'm capable of loving myself just as much, if not more, right? And, today I want to get very vulnerable. And I know my birthday is supposed to be something celebratory, something happy, something cheerful, because it is. I'm so grateful to be here, to see 29. Because I'm not trying to be dramatic when I say these things, but there were just so many days in those 5 years that I spent with him that I questioned whether it was worth it, whether it was worth it for me to keep going, whether I could have the will to continue to fight for my life. And I think one of the most fearful moments for me was the day that we found out I was pregnant. As soon as I took the pregnancy test, there was no hesitation. That thing was like, you're pregnant. There's no doubt. It didn't even take any time. And in the moment, it seemed like it was the most joyful thing. It was maybe this is hope. Maybe he'll change. Maybe he'll stop hurting me. Maybe he'll stop putting his hands on me. Maybe things will be different. We were happy. We were falsely, or at least I was falsely in love and falsely happy and joyful about that. And then later that day, honestly, we made the choice that we thought we were going to have the baby. And then later that day, we got into an argument. I can't even remember what the argument was about, but I just know it escalated really quickly. We were arguing between two separate rooms, and I'm sitting in my bed, tucked in, ready to sleep. And that pregnancy was just really exhausting for me. And just on top of everything else that I was going through. Just before that, I just lost my dad about 2 or 3 months before this. And I'm also going through the motions of this relationship, the highs, the lows, the abuse, the emotional trauma. And I finally, we're sitting there, we're arguing. I'm in bed. And he comes into the room and points a gun straight at my face. And I feel like I will never forget that. Never. He points the gun straight at my face. And I try to calm down. I just try to pray for protection over myself, over my child. And I try not to egg on the situation, and I try not to like make him angrier. And eventually, like, he walks out. And then I make my way slowly to the bathroom. Because I'm trying to like collect my thoughts. I'm trying to figure out like, how am I going to get out of the situation safely? How am I going to get me and my child and my dogs out of the situation safely? And he follows me into the bathroom. And then he continues to point the gun straight at my head. And he tells me, he shoves me in the tub, and he does not care. He does not give a fuck. And in that moment, like, I can still remember myself praying, like, either protect me, save me from this, or just let him take my life. And unfortunately, that would have meant that he would take my child's life as well. But I just knew that in that moment, my decision was solid. There was no turning back. I was not having this child with him. I refuse to bring my child into this. I refuse to allow my child to suffer through this and to watch this dynamic the way that it was. I refuse to bring my child into this world. And having to make that choice and having to make that decision was far from easy. I used to feel so disgusted in myself for even allowing myself to get to that point with this person. Like, I felt so disgusted with myself for having even thinking I wanted to ever reproduce with this person, because I was so disgusted in him. I was so disgusted in me. I was so just, I couldn't believe myself. I felt so ashamed, not of my choice to terminate my pregnancy. I was ashamed of who this was with, of the dynamic of this relationship. And you know, the sickest part is that wasn't even the end of it for me. I stayed with this person for years after this. And because I made it out of that situation alive, that moment, I promised myself that I wasn't going to carry on with this pregnancy. Like, I could not live with myself if I brought my child into the world and having to deal with this, having to suffer through this. But I stupidly, what I used to hate myself for was the fact that I could clearly think that I could hate myself for bringing my child into this world with a father like that. But I couldn't bear to bring myself to leave him sooner. Right? Like, that was pretty, like, you know, that was pretty stupid of me. But I just wasn't in a place to, I feel like I was living in a cloud for years. For years. Before I met him, I was getting back on my feet. I was I was in such a pivotal place of my life where I could have made a really great life-changing choice to move across the country. And for some reason, I chose to stay. And he kind of just really got me at the right time, you feel me? Like, I was going through, like, my dad's cancer was getting worse. My dad's condition was just worsening and worsening. And eventually my dad passed away. So he found me at a very vulnerable time. And I'm not saying I'm a victim, because I definitely chose to continue to stay with this person. But I was definitely never allowed the space to have the right mental state of mind to make decisions that were that life altering. Like, to be with someone like that. That choice to terminate my pregnancy, it really ate at me for years. I used to hate myself for it. I used to beat myself up for it. But, like I said, I hated myself more for the choice that I made with the person that I would have had my child with. And in so many ways, it's like, it sounds so twisted and fucked up, but I'm so grateful that I was smart enough to make the choice that I made. I was so grateful that I didn't allow myself this fake narrative of what a family should be. I'm glad I didn't allow this fantasy of this perfect life and this perfect family. I'm glad I didn't let that fantasy get to me, and I made the choice that I made. 'Cause I mean, I have an amazing life now. I have an amazing life now. 7 years later, I'm living this amazing life. I wouldn't have this life if I didn't make the choices and the sacrifices that I made back then. Even though I went through pain and suffering, I ultimately did what I knew was right for me. And now I have this beautiful life where I have the choice to be selfish. I have the choice to travel the world. I have the choice to live so freely and radically myself without feeling responsible for anyone else, without having to be responsible for anyone else. And for a really long time, like, that ate me up. And I never wanted to share it with the world. Not until I felt like I was ready to. But I almost felt forced to actually share that with the world. And like, he wanted me to share the news with my family. He wanted to share it with his family. He wanted to share it with his friends and post about it. And I remember people just like, after I had the termination, people would ask me things like, "Hey, I thought you were pregnant. Hey, how's the baby?" And I'm like, this is why I didn't want to publicly announce those things or publicly talk about that. Because I wasn't ready for that. Even if I was choosing to carry my pregnancy, like to carry my pregnancy to term, like, those are private things that I didn't care to share. And I felt very forced to share it. And also having known that I made that choice and that decision to not carry my child, to not have my child, I felt like that was a violation of my privacy, that he would share that with the world. And although he didn't share that it was a choice to terminate the pregnancy, just sharing the news of my pregnancy was just a violation of my privacy in general. And I guess I never really let that sink in or like thought about it in that way until now. But it was no one else's business to know but me and him. Barely even him. But, you know, I couldn't see my life going any other way. I couldn't see myself making a choice to live it out any other way. I couldn't imagine myself being 22, carrying a baby in and out the car, going to work as much as I did, going through the abuse that I was going through, suffering of silence, alone. Because God forbid he would ever let my family near my children, my child. And having to go through all that isolated and alone was hard. Because even going to terminate the pregnancy was, I went and did that alone. I didn't even know, not necessarily a fun fact, but just a fact. You are not supposed to operate a vehicle after you have an abortion, and I didn't even know that. I had to drive all the way back home from Chicago alone, emotionally all over the place. I couldn't even make it home without breaking down. I did that all alone. So, yeah, as I sit here and I reflect on the last 9 years of my life, as I sit back and I reflect on my 20s, I am so grateful for every experience I've been through. I'm grateful for every person that I've spent my 20s with, even if things didn't turn out the best. Even the ones who have hurt me in ways that I couldn't have imagined. Even those who have broken my heart, I'm grateful that I have spent my 20s with them. And I genuinely mean that. To those that I've lost in my 20s, I will love you forever. And I can't wait to meet you again in another lifetime. And last year on my birthday, I made a promise to myself to no longer wait for anyone to live my life anymore. So I took a solo trip to Canada. Me and my dogs, we drove all the way up there. Had the time of my life alone. Although I was dumped on my birthday, I found a way to find my happiness and my joy from that. And now, here I am, living so freely and so radically myself. And I'm taking one of the biggest trips in my life yet. I'm gonna be so far away from home. I've never been this far away from home, and I've never been this long away from my boys. But I'm so excited for the experiences that are going to happen. And I promised myself last year that I would live the rest of my 20s in the best ways I can, with the best moments of my life. And I swear to you, I am doing that. I have spent the last year traveling. I have spent the last year experiencing so many new things, meeting so many new people, loving so many new people, and it's been amazing. And right now, I would never trade that for the world. I would never trade it for the world. I am exactly where I've always been meant to be, where I've always seen myself. And I wouldn't change it. So yeah, it took a lot of shit to happen to me to be here. But all that shit, I'm gonna turn it into gold. I'm gonna turn it into everything I knew I was meant to have. I'm so grateful. Just so grateful to everything, to everyone, to every single lesson that I've learned, and every single experience that I've had, and all the love that I've felt, and even all the hate that I've felt. Because it wouldn't make me who I am now. It wouldn't make this experience more tasteful for me. And I love myself for it. I love myself for the choices I made and the mistakes that I made, and having to come out of it with not so many terrible permanent repercussions, but things that can still be fixed, things that can still be put together. I can never take back the years that I spent making those wrong choices. But something I've definitely learned to embrace about myself is, I can never hate myself for loving someone the way that I did and choosing someone the way that I did. Because all those times that I kept going back, all those times that I kept choosing him over me, and he was still so horrible to me. After all the times he's hurt me, all the times that he's put his hands on me, all the times that he purposely inflicted pain on me, and I still chose to stay. I still chose to go back. That just shows to me that I can continue to choose myself in that same way. I can choose myself. Because I would never do myself that way. I would never hurt myself in the ways that he's hurt me. So I know I can love myself that same way. I can choose myself that same way. And do more than that for myself. And better than that for myself. I spent these last few years trying to pick up the pieces. And, I used to feel like what would fill the void of, making up for all those lost years with him, I thought that I could fill that void by buying my first home, achieving all these accolades. But it doesn't replace what I needed to do, which was to heal, to uncover why I kept making those choices, why I continued to stay, why I kept going back, why I kept going into relationships that were no good for me. Nothing made up for that. And so I took my time to do that in the last couple of years. And I'm so grateful that I'm here finally. So yeah, this is still celebratory, even though I'm sharing something sad, even though I'm sharing something heartbreaking to me, it's still celebratory. This is my 29th birthday. The last year I am Miss 20 something. My final year in my 20s. And I wouldn't change any of it for anything. I'm so grateful. So grateful. And I will continue to radically be myself, even much after my 20s. And I'm so thankful to all of you guys for tuning in every single time, listening to me ramble, learning a little bit more about me, watching me be vulnerable. And just thank you for supporting me. Thank you for being a subscriber. I know I say that so and laugh, but no, seriously. It means so much to me. And I appreciate y'all so much. But I'm gonna go and enjoy Portugal. I'm gonna share with y'all the updates when I get back. But much love to you guys. And thank you so much for helping me stop the suffering of silence and subscribing to the pod. I'm gonna talk to you guys later.